everyone, so this is paper 3. Now remember, this is the decision making paper, so there's not really a huge amount of revision that you can actually do for this paper, but it's all about the exam technique. You could think that perhaps because there weren't any coasts questions in paper 1 and that was a compulsory topic, there may well be a coastal aspect to this decision making exercise. So you might want to possibly have a little read through your coasts notes. Possibly the coastal management section might be a good thing to just have a little read through, but don't spend ages revising it. Just have a little read through so that you've got those things in your mind, because the likelihood is there will be some sort of coasts on this paper. Okay, so the paper is going to be 1 hour and 30 minutes long, so it's half an hour longer than your other 2 papers. That breaks down to about 1.5 minutes per mark. And what will happen is you'll be given, as you've seen when we've done practice ones, a resource booklet that will be full of information about a particular place or issue, either in another country or in the UK. And it will bring you through that issue as you work your way through the resource booklet, introducing you to the different aspects of something where a decision needs to be made. There are no marks for knowledge, so you don't need case studies for this paper. Everything that you need for the context of this issue will be in the resource booklet that they give you. So you know that you start off with your short point marked questions, 1, 2, 3, 4 mark answers, and then you work your way up and there will be some 6 mark questions and there will be 2 12 mark questions in this paper. And there are always 2 12 mark questions. These will be synoptic. They will be asking you to draw on your knowledge across the GCSE course that we've covered across the 2 years. And you just need to trust that you will have that knowledge there. I'm sure that all of you will. The second 12 marker will have this decision making element to it. And it will also have an extra 3 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar. So that makes that final 12 mark question actually 15 marks. So it is really important that that last question, that 15 mark question, is answered well. 15 out of a total of 60 marks, so that is 1/4 of your marks in that one question. You must get onto that final question. You must put a decent answer down for that. If you leave having not done that final question, you know you've thrown away 1/4 of the marks already. You can't start with that question. It's really important that you work your way through the paper to that decision. Otherwise, the decision that you're made is not going to be contextualized with everything that you've looked at beforehand. So you just need to be keeping an eye on the clock and making sure that you are leaving yourself a good chunk of time, half an hour if possible, for that last 15 mark question. So you will be introduced to a problem or an issue. You will be given the context through lots of different maybe graphs or photos or people's quotes or maps and different things like that. You'll be given maybe some different options, or you might be given free rein to come up with your own solution or your own idea of what could be done, and that will be the decision that you have to make at the end. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to have a read through the resource booklet. You don't need to necessarily spend ages reading through it really slowly, but you must have a quick read through. The exam board expect you to do that. They've added time to this paper for you to read through the resource booklet. And it's important to at least skim through it. You need to see the big picture. You're going to be asked in that last question to essentially finish the story. So it's really important that you understand the story so far. What have we got? What are all the different aspects to the context to this particular decision that you're going to have to answer? Then work your way carefully through the short answer questions. It's not going to be knowledge, it's going to be asking you to analyse what you've got in front of you most of the time. And they will direct you to the specific figures that they want you to look at in order to answer each of the questions. Then you'll come on to your longer answer questions. These need to be planned carefully. You need to look very carefully at the command words that they've given you. What is it that they're actually asking you to do? And you need to make sure you are using the resources. So usually these questions will say using resources 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then the question. And you need to make sure that you are using and quoting from and referring to the actual resources that you've got in front of you. So command words, it's really important that you understand the difference between the different command words. So if they're asking you to assess something, you need to be looking at weighing up whether that statement is true. If they're asking you to compare something, what's similar between these two things and what's different between them? If they're simply asking you to describe something, remember you just say what you see. If they're asking you to discuss something, then perhaps looking at two different sides of an argument or an issue, or for and against something. If you're asked to evaluate, then you need to give evidence for and against, and then perhaps give your own verdict at the end after looking at the evidence for both sides. Examine something is where you look in close detail, giving the specific facts and important issues. If you're asked to explain something, then you need to set out why something is happening or the factors that are influencing something. You might get suggest, in which case you can offer an opinion for a particular course of action on an event or an issue that they've asked you about. And we might have to what extent do you agree? And if you get that as a command word, you need to make sure that you are quantifying how much you agree. So are you agreeing to a large extent? Are you agreeing to some extent? Are you disagreeing completely with whatever it is that they've asked you to look at? Okay, so remember when you get describe the pattern questions, you actually get 1 mark for just communicating in a logical and an appropriate order. So we've talked about using GCSE. So giving a general comment about what you can see, then giving some specific detail about what's happened in a particular year or in a particular continent, and then maybe giving some exceptions or anomalies. So particular years where it was particularly high or low, or a continent where there's nothing of the particular thing you've been asked to describe the distribution of. Here's a question where we've got a map and we're being asked to describe the pattern of development by country classifications. So first thing that we need to do is read the title. So IMF classifications for countries of North America and South America. So even if you don't know your continents, it's told you which 2 continents these are, and you can use that in your answer. Then it says always read the key. So make sure that we are looking at grey for ACs, yellow for EDCs, purple for LIDCs. So we can see that the greater majority of North America is grey, ACs. And then we can see South America, with the exception of 4 countries, everything else is yellow. So the greater majority is EDCs, with the exception of 4 LIDC countries. So here's another couple of examples. So you've got a world map showing food security risk. And again, you've got a key and you've got to describe the pattern for countries with the lowest level of food security risk. So that is the countries that are green. So you need to know your continents to be able to point out that North America, Western Europe and Australasia are the continents or the areas with the lowest levels. Here you've got a graph and a table and you're asked to describe the trend. And then you're asked to add some data. So the trend is it's increasing over time. You're asked to add the data for 2015, so drawing a plot onto the graph. You had a couple of those in paper 1. And then predicting the population for 2025 would just be to continue that line up and see what number you come to. And when you're given a graph question like this, a good thing to do is to give the lowest point, to give the highest point, and maybe do a quick calculation to work out how much it has increased by over a certain number of years, referring to specific years. If you're given a graph like this, then the word to use is fluctuating, where something's going up and down over time as the trend. Here's a map of the world, and you're asked to describe the location of Ghana, and they will always give you information on the map that you can use in your description. So you can see they've given you the equator, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and the prime meridian. So you can use your north, south, east and west to locate Ghana using any of those. So north of the equator, on the prime meridian, north of the Tropic of Capricorn, south of the Tropic of Cancer are all things that you can use. So when you get to the longer answer question, so anything above 4 marks is going to be level marked. And in order to get your answers into the top band here, you need to show that you've got confidence, you've got fluidity in your answer, you've got a logical structure, you're drawing on your detailed understanding, you're accurate, you're using substantiated evidence, so you are referring to the figures and the data that you can see in those figures. And if you're asked to, you're making a judgment. So some of the 12 markers that there have been in the past, you've got using figures 1, 2, 3 and 4 and your own understanding, explain how challenges in the city of Rio de Janeiro affect the coastal landscape. Then you've got Rio is facing many challenges, physical and human. The city now has a very limited budget. Using the information in the resource booklet and your own understanding, examine whether you think Rio should prioritise coastal management or improving squatter settlements over the next 10 years, and suggest how your decision could lead to long-term sustainability for the city. You've got some more questions there about Indonesia. So using figures and your own understanding, to what extent is the initial assistance identified appropriate as a response to the earthquake and tsunami? Using information and your own understanding, assess the environmental value of Sulawesi in Indonesia. Suggest one sustainable development strategy for use in Sulawesi to tackle either the threat of hazards or the destruction of their ecosystems. So in that case, you were given free rein to come up with any development strategy that you could think of. And in that case, you could draw on something that we have learnt over the 2 years and suggest a similar example. Here we've got reservoirs are a successful strategy for dealing with water stress, using figure 7 and 8 and your own understanding. To what extent do you agree? And again, you draw on the information in figure 7 and 8. And then at the bottom, Ghana is an LIDC. Using the resource booklet and your own understanding, write a brief report on Ghana's current economic development and decide on a strategy to help Ghana continue its development. So you've got to outline successes and challenges and propose a strategy that would allow Ghana to develop further and justify how this strategy would be able to increase development. So you need to make sure that you are doing both points that they've asked you to do. And in that case, again, you're given sort of free rein to come up with any sort of strategy that you think could help the people of Ghana. And again, you can draw on what we've talked about over the 2 years. So, for example, goat aid might be something that you might be able to draw on, or building a dam like the Rogan Dam, or that kind of thing. How do you structure these longer 12 markers? So you can use the traditional PEAL, so point, evidence, explain, link. You must make sure, and this was something that a lot of you didn't do very well when we did this as the first exam in January, you must make sure you are using your figure numbers. So figure 3 clearly shows, as shown in figure 1. Figure 2 highlights that this is the case. So you're actually giving your information, you're substantiating what you're saying with the actual evidence. So you're not just making a sweeping statement that you think this is the case. You are saying this is the case because here is the evidence in figure 3. So you must make sure that you are quoting from the figure numbers, and then you're developing those points. So your point is this, your evidence is this, that means that this is the case, or as a result of that, this will happen. And then you can start to link to the next point. You can also, if you're asked to justify your decision, use RAWR. So you give your reason for your chosen strategy, and then you do a peel paragraph. You give another 2 reasons for your chosen option, and give another 2 peel paragraphs. You point out that there are some weaknesses to your chosen strategy with a peel paragraph. And then you also give your reasons for not selecting the alternative options with a peel paragraph. So you'd use RAWR if they said to you, here are your 4 options, which one do you think we should use? Or here are 2 options, which one do you think would be better for us to use? Justify your decision. So you need to be pointing out that in your justification, you can see that your chosen strategy is not perfect. There are some weaknesses to your chosen strategy. However, you believe that it is the best strategy because whatever reason you want to give. So using RAWR. If you're asked to evaluate something, then you can use paragraph 1, and then you could start that with on the one hand, and then paragraph 2 on the other hand to give the 2 sides of what it is you're looking at. And then in paragraph 3, in conclusion, summarize the evidence you've given and make a substantiated judgment. So on the one hand, this could be good. On the other hand, this could be good. In conclusion, I think this would be best because this is the reason. So just to have a little look at a 12-mark model answer from one of the past exams. So this was looking at Rio, and you had to look at some coastal management issues, and then you had to look at some development issues. They were the 2 topics that they'd used in that case. And you had to examine whether you thought Rio should prioritise coastal management or improving the squatter settlements over the next 10 years. And then the second thing you had to do was suggest how your decision could lead to long-term sustainability for the city. So to get into the top band for this answer, you needed to make sure you'd used the resources and you developed your understanding of the challenges. You needed to develop your ideas of sustainability, and you needed to develop your examination of both of the options. So the model answer is here. So on the one hand, coastal management should be prioritised due to the importance of protecting the beach for tourism. In figure 2, it is stated Copacabana Beach is the best beach in Rio. Figure 4 shows the positive impacts of beach nourishment, creating a wider beach and increasing the number of large hotels. It is clear coastal management to protect against erosion and flooding is particularly important to sustain the economy of the area. However, the tourism economy is negatively impacted by the squatter settlements. Figure 2 mentions a stolen camera and sewage draining into the water, creating an awful stench. While coastal management might protect the beaches, many would argue improving the squatter settlements is more important. Inequality is high. Photos A and C highlight the poor standards of education available in the squatter settlement. The children therefore receive a poor quality education and are unlikely to be able to get a good job or move out of poverty. If investment is made to education, these children would have a much better chance of securing a good job and being able to break the cycle of poverty. Improvements to the sewage system would improve sanitation. Photo B highlights the current inadequacies. Photo 2, figure 2, mentions that the sewage from the squatter settlements drains straight into the water. Not only would improving the sewage infrastructure reduce disease and improve health, it would also eliminate the foul smell. More tourists would therefore be attracted to visit the excellent beaches and restaurants, so bringing money into the local economy. In conclusion, I believe both coastal management and improving the squatter settlements are important. However, I think improving the squatter settlements should be the priority. Improving quality of life and standard of living for the local people, as well as improving the environment. This in turn will improve the local economy, encouraging more tourists to visit and spend money and more TNCs to invest. The money this brings into the economy can then be spent improving the coastal defences, so ensuring the long-term sustainability of the area. So you need to make sure that you've done everything they've asked you to do, both points. You need to make sure that you have mentioned evidence, substantiated evidence. So all the bits that are highlighted yellow there. So as shown in figure 2, figure 4 shows, figure 2 mentions. That's really important if you want to try and get into the top band. And then obviously try to make sure that this extra one with the extra 3 marks for SPAG, that you've got paragraphs, that you've spelt keywords correctly, that you've got full stops, so that you can pick up those extra 3 marks really easily for your SPAG. Make sure that you remember to take a calculator, because there may well be some mathsy questions and you may well need a ruler as well. So make sure you've got a ruler in that exam. Right, so that's just a very quick run through. If anybody's got any questions, please send me a message on Show My Homework. Make sure you are referring to figure numbers, and good luck for your final geography exam.